Anthony Grassi for College.town here at the 2025 NACDA Convention. Happy to sit down with College of Idaho Vice President of Athletics, Reagan Rossi. Reagan, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me, Anthony. I appreciate it.
So as you sit here right now, what does NACDA mean to you as you finish your 24th year at COI?
I think for me as a young administrator, when I first started out, there was so much I didn't know. And to come to a convention like NACDA and to meet the people that you're exposed to here and the speakers and the people that are willing to pour into you and to give is something that I could have never anticipated, and has just helped me to be better, to serve my people better, to serve my student athletes better. And so to be able to be a member of NACDA and the way they've embraced the NAI has been just overwhelming.
What did it mean to have that first person pour into you? And how did you go about thinking back to maybe your first time at NACDA, thinking, because I know I can remember my first time. It can be certainly overwhelming, especially as a young administrator, where there are legends of this industry walking around and you just happen to be near them. How did you go about initiating some of that networking, some of that professional development through those relationships?
I think one of the things that I found was, just first of all, starting with our folks in the NAI. We've got some very talented administrators, some people who have done it for a long time that were willing to have those conversations with me. And so I think I started with the group that I was probably most comfortable with. I was an NAI student athlete. I coached in the NAI. I became an administrator in the NAI. So that was definitely my comfort zone. And so it's kind of like dipping your toe in the water, because you hear of the legends within our own organization. So Marty Holly, my predecessor, is in the NAI Hall of Fame. And so to be mentored by him as a young head coach into administration, that was a great first step. And then I got to meet people like Gary Piccone from LC State. I got to meet Jim Abbott, Kevin Steele who's now at OUAZ. And so to meet some of those people who went ahead of me, and I've got to give a lot of credit to Matt Sayer at Southern Oregon, who called me to be on the NAI ADA. Literally, I started July 12th, was my first day on the job. I think he called me second week of September and said, hey, you should be on the ADA. I said, I don't even know how to do the job yet, Matt. And he says, no, we're looking for more people. We need more women engaged. We need younger people engaged. And so there's people who reached out to me that now I feel this responsibility to bring other people along. And then when you get to NACDA for your first time, again, I didn't really know what I was walking into. So like I said, there's legends walking around here, and you start to see the pictures and you're putting faces with names, and then you start to hear them speak and their journeys. And, just NACDA itself, where it started, and they talk about, well, we used to do this at Marco Island, and now there's no way this fits at Marco Island. And so to see the organization itself grow and to be invited to be a part of that is really something special.
Beyond NACDA, how have you, given that you've been at one place for a long time, developed and grown from being an early administrator to now finishing year 9 leading athletics?
I think my first year, because I'd been at the college for so long, I think it was, and I'd been an associate AD for a while. Mm-hmm. And I did that job while I was still coaching, and then I did it solely for 2 years without coaching. And then my first year as the athletic director, I kind of stayed the course of what we had been doing, and I just really listened. And I wanted to see what we were doing and how effective it was and what we needed to do. What were opportunities? Where are the opportunities? And then so we did a strategic plan like a lot of people do. We came with our mission, vision, and values. And then kind of at the end of that process, as we started looking at the institution and the student athletes, we really kind of developed these other 4 pillars. And it's how we want to grow and how we shared that within the department, with our coaches, with our staff. And it really, we talked about academic excellence, commitment to service, community engagement, and leadership development. We didn't talk about winning. Winning's a byproduct of what we felt was building it the right way. And we committed to that. And what it's done is we've increased roster sizes, which all small schools want to do right now. We've increased retention. We've increased academic awards. We've increased graduation rates, and we've won. And so we really feel like being committed to those things and being able to understand who you are, and being, when you can tell that to people and you say, I can tell you exactly who we are, then it's easy to sell to faculty, staff, students, recruits, your community, your boosters, your sponsors. It's being comfortable with who you are, and this is the culture we've built, and we've got a byproduct to show for it.
When you were building that, is there a challenge in, especially given that you were there for a long time, going from I am one of everybody to now I am the leader to now here's how I want to lead this department forward? Are there challenges in taking each step and implementing the vision that you see for the department? Because clearly there's probably, I imagine there's some, you're not on two completely different paths. Mm-hmm. They are going the same direction, but you have maybe a slightly different lane than what it was previously.
I think coaches saw it as a kind of a positive. I don't know as we'd ever really put together like, here's who we are and here's where we want to go, right? I think we all did a lot of great things. I think we all did it individually. And now I wanted to make sure we were all rowing the boat together the same direction. And so I think the other thing is, I truly believe in servant leadership. So I will never, ever have my people do something either I haven't done, I'm not willing to do, I won't try. They get on me sometimes because I'll do stuff. They're like, you should let us do that. And like, I'm getting a little older, and they're like, I'll go take on anybody. And they're like, Coach. And they call me Coach a lot, which I always appreciate. Coach, you should let us help you with that. Like, Coach, don't go take on that person by yourself. You need us with you. So, when you're a servant leader and you're in the trenches and you're willing to continue to do the work, nothing's beneath us. That okay, we're in it together. This is leadership, but this is how we do it together.
Given that those around you saw you do all of that, I imagine people change, staff changes over time, but the fact that they've seen you be the coach, they've seen you do the dirty work that you have to do as you grow and progress in this industry. How did that help you when you started as the AD to say, not just say, here's what I think, but that you know what I'm capable of, you know who I am as a person, as opposed to being an outside leader that has to come in and establish that trust where it may take a month, 6 months, a year, 2, for them to understand, okay, this person's really in the trenches with us.
I started it really while I was coaching. I pushed Marty to let me do more because I'd gotten my master's in sports administration at Morehead State in Kentucky, and I knew at some point my career path was going to go that direction. I didn't know when. And so I started taking on more within the department really within the first 2 to 3 years of coaching. And so when you start to take those things on, and then we started football, which is, a beast in and of itself. Mm-hmm. So as my predecessor, Marty, started to work on establishing football and starting football, and we didn't have a stadium. We had one with the city, but it needed a lot of renovation. We needed to fundraise. We didn't have a building. We didn't have a weight room that could support that. So he started really focusing on that. And so for about 3 to 4 years, I was day-to-day operations. So when it came time for him he decided he was going to retire, and we actually just changed roles. It was, of course, it's her. Because I had established that with the coaches, with the administration. So there was no, we should open this up and see what we get. We've got a leader. We've got somebody here and we have a history of hiring within. We've got a lot of alumni who have been with us for a long time as our head coaches. And they were assistant coaches there before they were head coaches. I was an assistant coach there before I was a head coach there. And so we have a history of building and growing our own people, be it for ourselves or for when they go to that next job. And so when I was fortunate enough to have this opportunity, I honestly didn't think I would get into administration as young as I did, but you also can't pass up the opportunities when they come along at an institution you love, a place that you believe in, and a community that supports us like they do.
You mentioned that you knew that you would get out of coaching. How did you know that? And when did you maybe know, all right, I'm okay with it being now?
I don't know if I'm ever okay at being out.
Okay. Because most aren't. That's part of your identity.
Yes, it's definitely, like I said, a lot of people still call me coach, and it still feels like it fits a lot better than a lot of the other things they call me. I think when I was in grad school, I took one sports management class in undergrad. I was like, okay, this seems to fit better than what my major is.
Which was what?
Athletic training.
Okay.
But I was so far along in the program that I'm like, well, you're kind of stuck. Like you can't, senior year, you're not changing. But my grad program, I knew I would do in sports administration. And while I was doing that, I found that, you get this energy and this high and this emotion from coaching, be it not even just games, but, when you land your recruit or you have this, you're doing something in practice and all of a sudden it works perfectly in a game, right? When all those things kind of come together, I saw the ability to do that as an administrator, be it event management or, now when I see our programs that are successful, that you can get that same fulfillment and that same energy and that same passion and experience all of that from other successes that aren't necessarily in that 40 minutes.
How did your leadership style evolve as you went from coach to administrator?
I think anytime you take on a new role, it's pretty humbling. Like I said, I spent the first year listening, which I think people were a little surprised at because I'd been there and I knew the institution. But I really wanted to assess what we were doing. I think my leadership style now is, I have great staff. I've learned to use them more. When I was coaching, I don't know as I used my assistant coaches well enough, efficiently enough. They were part-time. So I always kind of took that into consideration, like how much can I really ask of you based on what I'm paying you? But now, like I said, if you can build that strong staff around you, you can delegate and not worry. Ray Shevlin, longtime still men's basketball coach at St. Ambrose University, where I played, and he was the athletic director, and he was the one who taught the sports management class that I took. And Coach Ray has a gruff voice. It's, I'll tell you what, you learn how to delegate, you'll be successful. It's thanks, Coach. But delegation really is key, and then it's trusting. And I've learned to trust more. And I think, I think every administrator here is going to, we're all a little bit of a control freak. We got to own it. If we don't, we're lying to ourselves. But when you have that opportunity to work with, and I had a couple really good associate ADs with Danielle Brazil, who's now at ESPN running the Potato Bowl, and Austin Bastiachia, who's with me now, who was a student athlete and a coach for us, and Danielle was an alum, and people that love the institution like you do, you can get a lot accomplished. And you can do it together. And you've got to continue to pour into them as well. Now
that you have some perspective, being in the chair, you mentioned you took the first year to listen, and most outside hires do that. Would you have done anything differently, looking back how you handled your first year, that could help you heading into the next academic year?
I think one of the challenges that I had is I probably, like all of us, you just get so focused, and I tried to do a lot in those first year to 2 years, right? Once we kind of had our direction, it's like, okay, I'm a full court press person. We pressed, we ran, energy, and it was recognizing that not everybody's built that way. Even some of the head coaches, like we all are different in our own respect. And so how do I think now, looking back, how do I respect, I mean, my family sacrificed a lot, both when I was coaching and when I was first starting out. I like to think I'm a little more protective of that time now. I think I wasn't then. I don't think I was of my people either. And I think, a lot of these sessions are talking about, your own health and your own well-being and how do you manage your time better and how do you, you know, set your boundaries. I didn't set boundaries. I did not. I'm not sure I have great boundaries now. I like to think they're a little bit better. But I think it's recognizing that I also didn't want to miss anything along the way with my family. So it was just everything all the time. And I don't know as that was great. I think setting boundaries early. We were just talking in our last session with Lil Myrick about like I don't email all night long like I used to. I don't get home and as soon as I get the kids to bed, like I'm back at it. I need my time. I need quiet. I never needed quiet before. I think maybe it's coming with age. I don't know. I need quiet to refocus, to re-energize. I'm very protective of my time that I never was before.
How is that? What advice, I guess, would you give to your peer about the delegation element of this? Because I was talking to Tim Selgo not too long ago, and he mentioned the need that he saw early in his tenure for having to delegate, given that they had so many sports and he is one person, and how that helped his staff develop because they had to go through all the reps that they ultimately would have to go to once they sit in the chair, where they might only need it now for 1, 2, 4 sports. Ultimately, they will do that for 20, but they don't know what to do for 20 unless they've done it for 1. So how have you put that into practice, I guess, now at College of Idaho?
That's a really good question. I think what we've kind of developed, and my boss actually just talked to me about this a little bit, like, can you assign some sports to Austin, our associate AD? And so I got with Austin, I said, hey, what do you think? And he says, that's not how you work. That's not how you manage. I'm very relational. I fiercely love my people, sometimes to a fault. He said, so I can't see you giving that up with those people or that connection, even for the betterment of his career. And he says, and I don't think that's where I want to go right now. And so I think it's knowing yourself, knowing what your next person's capable of, and what direction does he want to go? What can I give him to help him manage better? So right now he's over our athletic communication team. He works with them a lot more than I do. I still meet with them in a one-on-one, but he works with them on the day-to-day basis. I think kind of like when I was a head coach, your head coach and your assistant coach, the kids all go to the assistant coach and and you're the heavy. I think we see that a little bit too, like the coaches will go to him with either things that they want or they want to complain about or whatever it is. And so I think it's not that he's not hands-on with the coaches, because he is, but he's in charge of all of our sponsorships and our events and those kinds of things. And so he's learning that component of the job. And because of the relationships, again, because he was a student athlete and as a head coach, assistant coach and head coach for us, that he has those relationships with the coach just as organically. That should I decide I'm going to step away or whatever, I think they would feel the same about him as they did me when I got into the role.
But Austin saying that says a lot of the culture that you have built, because it could be intimidating to say, kind of say it to your face how he thinks you would ultimately react in that situation.
Yeah.
The self-awareness, but B, the relationship that the two of you have, for him to be able to say that to you, and obviously you be receptive to that. What does that mean to you as you kind of reflect on the openness of that?
It's funny, when I had assistant coaches, I would you have to tell me when I'm wrong. I can't be right all the time. I'm not that good. I'm just not that good. And so I kind of have had that same relationship with Austin and with Danielle before. Like we need to be in lockstep. You can disagree with me. It's okay. I need to hear it. I need to hear when I missed it. I need to hear when we're not doing it right, when we can do it better. I need to hear when, I get old and stuck in my ways, and he pushes me to things that we need to change. And sometimes he's got to push harder. I'm like, okay, if you really think that's what we should do, let's do it. Or I'll come down and say, hey, I saw this. I really want to do it. Can we do it? And he'll say, all right, let me figure it out. And then he'll come back with, yeah, we can do this. Here's what it's going to cost, or here's what we need to do, or here's what it's going to cost, and we're not doing it. And so I think that open relationship, I think one of the great things we've done at the College of Idaho is our families have all grown up there. Our kids have grown up there. My daughters were there really they were with me the first year of their life. I've got twins. And so to have that family atmosphere, I think that whole relational component, I think of all the kids that have grown up in our department that have been students with us or student athletes for us, have graduated, maybe even come back and coach some or work at the college in some capacity. And I think when you think about those things, it's really, when you do that, you get to have these open and these honest conversations. I don't ever want to be not approachable. I never want that. I want people to be able to come, even if it means it's going to make me mad, that's okay. We'll work through it. We work through it together. But I think when we start establishing that open line of communication and that trust, that he and I get to have some of these conversations, and he gets to tell me exactly what he thinks.
How do you lead? What's the relationship like through that? And I guess the thing that comes to mind is you may disagree with what your superior may think, but you are committed to the betterment of the mission, the vision, the entity as a whole.
Yeah.
How do you kind of lead as the leader through that? And somebody says, I may disagree with you. You have the final say as the boss. If that's the way we go, I'm committed to it.
I think I learned that as an assistant coach, and I think hopefully my assistants have learned that with me. And at the end of the day, I'm the one who has to make the decision. I get to collect all the input, but if it goes well, I get to give everybody else credit. If it goes poorly, I will take all of the blame. It was my decision and mine solely. They gave me input. I thought for whatever reason, chose this direction. But I will, like I said, protect my people. Again, almost to a fault. But I think once they see that and you see it in action, I think it gets easier to trust. I think for Austin and I think he's young into administration too. He's just finishing his third year. Then there's days when he says, man, I don't want your job. I'm glad it's not my job to make this decision, right? And so, you've got to wear that a little heavy sometimes, but when I ask, he'll tell me, and then I get to let it stew a little bit, and then I'll call him and say, well, here's what I think we're going to do. And he'll say, okay, let's do it. Whatever it is, whether he likes it or not. It's okay, I'm in.
Leading the department forward, you guys have had a ton of success. How have you continued to refine and not tinker, because tinker always has kind of, I guess, a negative connotation, but steer the ship in the right way to help lead the department and maintain that standard of excellence?
I think we have great coaches. One of the things I always tell people, my job is to continue to put our student athletes and our coaches in a position to be successful. And if I can do that, I'm being effective. If I'm not doing that, then I really have to look at what we're doing. I like to learn. I read books. I come to conventions. I pay attention. I'm not a fast reader, so it takes me a while. I'm not a big podcast person, but I have started listening to Molly Fletcher's podcast a little bit. And I enjoy some of the people that she interviews. And so, when you come to a convention like this, if I can take one or two things home and say, hey, how do I take this and implement this at the College of Idaho and make us better? I'm always striving for us to be better. I don't know as I'm ever really satisfied, right? Which can be annoying for people, right? But like we've worked with the John Gordon group, and we've got Chad Bussick coming back out to work with our some of our student leaders and our staff. I can't always provide the financial support to go do professional development, but if I can bring it in and I can give them some tidbits and continue to help them be better, then that's what I need to do. A lot of it at our level is fundraising. Austin does a great job. Danielle before him did a fantastic job of really laying the groundwork of like winning's expensive. Building that culture costs money. And so if we can continue to fundraise at the capacity we are and continue to build the community sponsors and partnerships that we have, then we can continue to pour into them, those programs financially where it's not a burden. One of the things I swore I would never have happen is I don't want a coach to feel bad because they won and they're successful. And it's my job to figure out how we're paying for postseason. I don't want that. We need to celebrate that. That's what we were trying to do. That's what we've achieved. And I don't want them going, oh man, we won, what now? So that's one of the big things that when I took this position, I was going to make sure we didn't feel bad for being successful.
Excellent message to end on. Reagan, thank you so much for joining me today and providing all these insights at NACDA.
Thanks, Anthony. Thanks for having me.